Welcome in, everybody. Ready to dive into the life of, well, pretty fascinating guy, Theodore Roosevelt.
TR, yeah, definitely a larger than life figure, and we've got some great material to work with.
For sure, those excerpts you send over from the American History Hit podcast with, was Michael Patrick Cullen?
That's the one historian, and he's got this unique perspective because he's involved in the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, so.
Yeah, talk about an insider's view.
Exactly, and it comes through in how he talks about everything, the square deal, conservation, even TR's adventures after he left office.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Talk about an accidental president, 1901, McKinley gets shot, and boom, TR is thrust into the spotlight.
And Cullen really captures the drama of it. TR's up in the Adirondacks hiking when he gets the news. And
Wait, so he's like miles from anything, no cell phones back then.
yeah, Cullen actually retraced that journey, just the sheer logistics of it. Carriage through the night, then the train, and by the time TR gets back, McKinley's gone.
Wow, so he takes the oath of office, becomes president at 41. Under those circumstances, that's got to be intense.
And there's even debate about exactly where he took the oath, adding to this sense of, like, a whirlwind of events.
Like about pressure, stepping into those shoes,
Yeah.
inheriting McKinley's administration.
And he does, but he makes it clear he's got his own vision, the square deal.
Okay, so the square deal, we hear that a lot, fairness for the rising middle class. But what did it actually look like in practice?
Well, Cullen connects it to TR's background, his Dutch heritage, that progressive spirit of New York City.
So it's not just politics, it's personal.
Exactly. Hard work being rewarded, a level playing field. That's where his Trustbuster nickname comes from.
Right, going after the monopolies, the big one being the Northern Securities Company, that railroad giant.
And Cullen points out this is the first time in American history a monopoly was broken up by the government.
That must have sent shockwaves through the business world.
Huge statement, showing TR meant business, but he also saw the need to protect consumers, too.
This is around the time Upton Sinclair publishes The Jungle, right?
Yeah.
Exposing those horrific conditions in the meatpacking plants.
And Cullen emphasizes how public outcry, fueled by works like Sinclair's, pushes TR to champion the Food and Drug Act, the Meat Inspection Act, in 1906.
So he realizes with a modern industrial nation, you need safeguards for the people.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much we take for granted today, in terms of food safety, can be traced back to those actions.
Absolutely. And that same forward-thinking approach, it seems like it extended to conservation too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And Cullen really brings out TR's deep personal connection to nature.
His time in the Adirondacks out west, it definitely shaped his views.
Yeah, but he wasn't about just locking land away. His concept of conservation, working with Gifford Pinchot, was about sustainable use, benefiting all Americans.
An idea that's still debated today.
Oh, for sure. They established national forests, monuments like the Grand Canyon, bird sanctuaries, all with this sustainability in mind.
It's really fascinating how those conservation efforts tie into our modern concerns about climate change, habitat loss.
And Cullen even mentions how specimens TR collected back then are now helping scientists study those very issues, showing that connection between past and present.
While he was progressive on many fronts, TR's record on race is, well, it's more complicated.
Yeah, and Cullen brings up that dinner with Booker T. Washington, the backlash it sparked, especially in the South.
It shows the limits of progressivism at the time, right?
I think so. TR personally believed in equality, but he was also a pragmatist.
Trying to navigate a really tricky political landscape.
He was, and Cullen suggests he walked a tightrope, promoting Black Americans in civil service, defending that postmistress Minnie Cox, but not tackling issues like lynching head-on.
It's tough to judge through today's lens, isn't it? Someone considered progressive then, but...
It is, and it's a reminder that progress isn't always linear. There are complexities, contradictions, especially when we're looking back at historical figures.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Talk about foreign policy. TR really shaped America's global role during some pretty tense times.
He did, and Cullen highlights that Nobel Peace Prize he won for arbitrating the Russo-Japanese War, a conflict that could have exploded globally.
So he's stepping in, trying to find a peaceful solution.
Exactly. Navigating competing interests, brokering a peace settlement. It's a testament to his diplomatic skills.
And then there's the Panama Canal, which really changed global trade and solidified U.S. naval power.
Yeah, Cullen explains the geopolitical importance, how it shortened shipping routes, amplified U.S. influence. But he also doesn't shy away from the controversial aspects.
Like TR's support for Panamanian independence, which paved the way for the canal.
Exactly. It raises ethical questions, reminding us that even landmark achievements can have shadows.
It definitely adds another layer to the story. So After 2 terms, he decides to step down, upholding that 2-term tradition. But his choice of successor, William Howard Taft, that didn't go so smoothly, did it?
Not exactly, and Cullen points out this key miscalculation early in TR's second term. He announces he won't seek a third term.
And that backfires.
It does. Cullen calls it making himself a lame duck, instantly diminishing his power.
Classic political blunder. Reminds me of Tony Blair's situation in the UK.
Yeah, similar dynamic, and it allows that rift between TR and Taft to widen.
Because Taft wasn't as gung-ho about progressive reforms as TR had hoped.
Right, setting the stage for that 1912 election, the rise of the Bull Moose Party, but we'll dive into that in the next part of your deep dive.
So we left off with TR kind of stepping back from the spotlight, but knowing him, he wasn't done with politics, was he?
Not a chance. Cullen describes this period as almost inevitable, given TR's personality. I mean, Taft's more conservative approach. It wasn't sitting well with TR at all, and that rift between them, well, it just kept growing.
Leading to that dramatic 1912 election, the Bull Moose Party, TR's back in the game, and not just running against Taft, but challenging the whole system with this progressive platform.
Yeah, Cullen really digs into the specifics of that platform. Direct election of senators, national health care even, women's suffrage, and inheritance tax, radical stuff for the time, really pushing the political conversation to the left. Even Woodrow Wilson, the Democratic nominee, had to adjust his stance just to keep up with TR's vision.
So even though he lost that election, his impact was huge.
Oh, absolutely. It's like sometimes losing a battle can still shift the entire landscape for future victories.
And it's so TR, right? I mean, the campaign itself was dramatic, full of those unexpected turns, and then there's that assassination attempt in Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah, the one where he gets shot but keeps on giving his speech, bullet still lodged in his chest.
I mean, that detail from Cullen really got to me. Just his reaction to being shot,
Yeah.
the sheer fortitude to keep going. It's pretty incredible.
Speaks volumes about his character, doesn't it? It makes you think about, how many people today would have that same level of resilience.
It's a good question. And it's interesting to compare it to other similar situations throughout history. Like when Reagan was shot, those moments where someone just keeps going in the face of danger, it says a lot about their inner strength.
Absolutely. So, okay, TR loses the election. What's a man of action like him to do next? Well, he sets his sights on the Amazon.
The River of Doubt expedition, right? That's where we get to TR's son, Kermit, and this whole other chapter unfolds.
Yeah, and Cullen presents this expedition as almost foreshadowing TR's own declining health. This wasn't just some sightseeing trip. They're venturing into uncharted territory, a vast and unforgiving wilderness.
So just how tough was this expedition? I mean, we're talking about the Amazon rainforest here.
Treacherous rapids, dense jungle, you've got dangerous wildlife, stolen rations, and even a murder within their group, adding this whole other layer of darkness to the story. TR himself suffers a near-fatal leg injury, even contemplates being left behind to allow the others to survive.
Wow, Colin's descriptions are so vivid, you really get a sense of the mental and physical toll this whole experience took on TR and his son.
It definitely pushed them to their absolute limits, and while they did eventually make it out, TR's health never fully recovered. He returns a shadow of his former self, really, and dies just a few years later at Sagamore Hill, his home in Oyster Bay.
It's almost poetic, isn't it? After a life of such intensity, such adventure, he returns home to spend his final days. And speaking of Sagamore Hill, Cullen talks about visiting it and how it offers this glimpse into TR's personality.
Yeah, it's a National Historic Site now, and Cullen describes it as a place where you can really sense TR's presence, from the mountain animal heads, the tusks, to the simple furnishings. It's a tangible connection to the man himself.
It makes you want to go there, experience it firsthand, walk in his footsteps, imagine him in that space.
It does, and as we head into the final part of your deep dive, it's worth reflecting on how TR's legacy continues to shape our world today.
I'm really curious to hear Cullen's thoughts on. He seems to have such a nuanced understanding of TR, both his strengths and his flaws.
He does, and I think you'll find his insights on TR's lasting impact pretty compelling.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. From the presidency to the Amazon, TR's life was anything but boring. I'm really curious to hear how Cullen sums up his legacy, especially given all those complexities we've talked about.
Well, he starts by saying something that I think is really important. He says, understanding the Gilded Age, the progressive era, all that rapid change and upheaval back then, it's key to understanding our own times. There are so many parallels.
Oh, totally. Like, you've got booming industries, corporate power on the rise, the struggles for workers' rights, those debates about government's role in society. It's all kind of familiar, isn't it?
Exactly. And Cullen argues that by looking at how TR navigated those challenges, we can actually gain insights into our own present day dilemmas.
So, like, take his square deal vision, for example, that focus on fairness, a level playing field, making sure the system works for everyone, not just the privileged few. That feels incredibly relevant today, doesn't it?
Absolutely, though some of TR's specific approaches, they might seem, I don't know, almost quaint to us now.
Yeah, I could see that.
But Cullen emphasizes that it's the underlying principles that matter most, social justice, economic equity, those are timeless, and they're still fueling so many conversations we're having today about inequality, opportunity, all of that.
And we can't forget his conservation legacy. I mean, he was way ahead of his time in recognizing the need to protect our natural resources, working with Gifford Pinchot on that idea of sustainable use.
What Cullen finds interesting is how those efforts, which came from TR's personal connection to nature, really laid the groundwork for how we approach environmental issues today. TR understood that our well being, present and future generations, it all depends on our relationship with the natural world.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how those specimens he collected are now helping scientists study climate change.
Yeah.
Talk about unintended consequences, right?
Exactly, full circle in a way, but beyond specific policies, Cullen highlights TR's spirit as his most enduring legacy. That boldness, the unwavering conviction, that belief in the power of individual action to make a difference, those qualities resonate with people even today.
He was a man of action, that's for sure, charging up San Juan Hill, taking on those corporate giants, exploring uncharted territory, never one to back down from a challenge.
And Cullen reminds us it's not just about those grand gestures or holding high office, it's about that strenuous life. TR embodied, pushing yourself, engaging with the world, standing up for what you believe in, those are lessons we can all apply to our own lives.
It's pretty inspiring, honestly. His story shows that one person can make a difference, that we all have that potential to leave our mark on the world.
He was a complex figure, for sure, full of contradictions, but ultimately a force for progress. And his legacy, I think, it reminds us that history isn't just a collection of dusty facts. It's a source of inspiration, insight, even wisdom that can guide us as we face the challenges of our own time.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the incredible life of Theodore Roosevelt. I hope this has given you a new perspective on him, and maybe even sparked some thoughts about your own role in shaping the future.
Remember, as Colin says, the past is prologue. Understanding where we've been helps us navigate where we're going.
And if there's one thing we can take from TR's story, it's that we all have the potential to be bold, courageous, to be forces for good in the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep questioning the world around you.